Good morning and thank you all for coming today. My name is Jesus Gil. I'm a student of English for specific purposes in the UNED University. The purpose of my presentation today is to analyze causes and consequences of one of the greatest humanitarian dramas of our time, forced migrations. I also intend to make some proposals in order to curb this trend. In today's presentation, I'm planning to cover the following points. Firstly, an approach to this phenomenon within the human rights framework. Secondly, we look at the three fundamental causes for migration and their consequences in terms of large populations displaced. After that, I'll point out some proposals that might be tackled by governments, and finally I'll summarize the conclusions. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, please leave them until the end of this presentation, when I'll do my best to answer them. I'd like to start by looking at the legal and institutional context for the protection of human rights in the world. In its preamble, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights considers that the freedom, justice, and peace in the world have their foundations in the recognition of the inherent dignity and the free and equal rights of the human family. Also, Article number 1 proclaims that all human beings are born free and equal in rights and dignity. They are endowed with reason and conscience, and they should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. The declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948, and it set up for the first time fundamental rights to be universally protected. Since then, a series of international treaties and other instruments have conferred legal form and developed the body of inherent rights. 9 of them constitute the core of all human rights international treaties. In addition, there are several other important United Nations agencies and bodies which are involved in the promotion and protection of human rights. Now let's have a look at this data. There are now 195 sovereign states in the world, of which 193 are United Nations member states. Well, it turns out that all United Nations member states have ratified one of the core of international treaties, and 80% have ratified 4 or more. Well, then it could be argued that human rights are safe and protected enough by a wall of treaties, laws, and above all, the strong willingness of governments to reinforce them. However, the fortress of human rights is falling apart, hit by one of the most shameful scourge of our time, the forced migration of millions of human beings. So this is an overview of the legal and institutional framework for the protection of human rights in the world. And now let's move on to the next point of my presentation, which is causes and consequences for migration. The reasons for migration are diverse, but the most common causes are war, development, and blatant violations of rights and freedoms. In either case, migrants are deprived of their inalienable citizenship rights. While the state from which they are forcibly thrown out keeps its own territorial and national identity, some of its citizens are considered stateless. According according to ACNUR latest reports, the number of refugees forcibly displaced in the war in 2013 for one of the previous mentioned causes was 51 million people. As shown in the following graphics, three of the major armed conflicts in the world, that is Afghanistan, Syria, and Somalia, were a direct cause of 6 million of forced displacement. Neighbor countries such as Pakistan, Iran, Jordan, Turkey, and Kenya were sheltering to 4 million people. Furthermore, the 80% of the total refugee population were finding a shelter in developing countries. Behind these figures, there are such as tragic humanitarian consequences that it justified any effort to devise measures leading to relief and prevent such catastrophes. The following are some concrete proposals to this end. As we can see in the following graphics, according to World Trade Organization, total merchandise trade of the aforementioned hosting countries in 2013 came to $656 billion, of which trading with the United Arab Emirates, European Union, China, and United States, countries which immigration laws are very strict, amounted to $290 billion. Well, on this basis, here it is the first proposal. Bordering countries to war zones and hosting refugees should benefit from some kind of advantage in their trading international transactions. These resources so obtained could be applied to relieve refugees' conditions. As a single 0.7% fee charged on the total trading transactions would raise funds in this example by $2 billion to be applied in favor of refugees. Next graphic shows the share of developing economies and least developed countries in the global world trade. They export amounted to $8,004 billion, which accounted for 47% out of global world export. So this is proposal number 2. In a similar way, the total fund raised by the levy of 0.7% on the total international trade transactions with developing and least developed countries could be applied to internal development projects. It could boost the living standard of the populations and serve as a deterrent factor for migrating. And proposal number 3, as a kind of deterrent, trade with countries whose blatant violation of rights are the cause of millions of forced displacement should be in some way restricted. Well, that brings me to the end of the last session of this presentation, and I'd like to summarize the main points I've dealt with. Firstly, we've reviewed the existence of a legal and institutional framework for the protection of human rights. Secondly, we've analyzed the main causes and consequences of forced migrations. And finally, I've suggested some possible proposals to be tackled that might be applied to curb this phenomenon, aimed at improving life standard by trading. And now let me conclude with this reflection. Only as a part of a universal state putting the defense and promotion of human rights ahead of citizenship, an state is legitimate to its own identity, which in any case should be subordinate to the people's common feature, their humanity. And now is time for questions. Does anyone have any question? Well, it's only left for me to thank you all for your attention, your interest. Thank you.